Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Coffee with Katie. I have my night court mug and a sugar cookie peppermint latte. So good. So good. So for today's video, I actually want to talk about some books that I think deserve a lot more hype and aren't getting enough hype, are very underhyped, if you will. Yeah, just books that I think deserve more hype. I read them and loved them, and I don't understand why they're not being talked about more, or why people either aren't giving them a chance or aren't enjoying them. Like, I just don't get it. So I want to talk about them and hype them up. One of them I will say is kind of an honorable mention because I think there is hype around it. I just haven't heard people talk about it, like reading it and enjoying it, right? So let's just get into it. The first one I want to talk about is Silver Cloak by L.K. Stephen. Now, all of these books I have obviously read, so you've heard me talk about them to some degree, but I loved this book. This is an adult fantasy, and it is super good. I'm going to kind of read you a little bit of the world and like the synopsis and stuff, but as you can see here, the character has a wand. This is a world where wand magic is a thing, and I loved that. So if you like the like Harry Potter intricate spells, wand magic situation, it has those elements in it, but it also has a lot of other stuff going on. So much so that when I read this, I fell in love with it. I went out and got a signed copy from Barnes & Noble. I was pumped, you know? The little inside flap says, in this addictive new fantasy series set in a world where magic is fueled by pleasure and pain, an obsessive detective infiltrates a brutal gang of dark mages, knowing that one wrong move will get her killed. And that's exactly what's going on. So you start off, the book actually starts off super fast and really interesting as the main character is a child, and it's kind of like her backstory. I don't want to say a whole lot about it, but it's like a tragic backstory is the beginning of the book. Well, I want to say a lot about it, because I want to rave about it. I want to get you intrigued enough to read it. So it's like her tragic backstory, and then you fast forward to she is in this school to try to become a Silver Cloak, which in this world is kind of like the detectives and the police force of the magical world. So they are the law and order, they keep people safe, they take down bad guys, all that stuff. And there's a certain type of magic, I'm trying to not get into that right now, but there's a certain type of magic that has been extinct for a long time, and the rulers at this time consider it to be evil and an abomination, and nobody should ever use that type of magic. Understandable. So that's kind of in the background too. That's a dead history almost. And so in this time period, that's not a magic that exists, but it's kind of mentioned and talked about. But the main character has a secret, and as she's going through training, I think she said she's one test and like a few days away from graduating and becoming a Silver Cloak. But then something goes horribly wrong, and she is instead recruited to go undercover into the gang of dark mages and take them down from the inside. This is a group called the Blood Moons, and they are kind of like a dark syndicate group. It's like the mafia sort of, but not. It's just they're impossible to catch. Like, they can't ever get in trouble, they can't ever be caught, but they know they're doing these things and they know they're like breaking the law. They just don't have any proof. And so they kind of send her to go undercover to take them down from the inside. But she has to gain their trust, and a lot of other magical intricacies are involved with that as well, because she has to like swear fealty to them. They wear these crimson cloaks, the blood cloaks, and they're vicious, brutal, kind of murderers, but they're just criminals. They like get people addicted to things, so they'll gamble more. Like, there's a lot of things going on underneath the surface, and there's this like plot point that she's trying to uncover. She's like, what is their actual goal? And they don't really know, and so she's trying to kind of figure that out along the way. So if you like detective stories and you like magic, check this out. I will say that it can be a little bit frustrating at times, because some of the choices she makes is a little frustrating, but also she's on her own, and she's like, death looms around like every corner, But one of the things she tries to do is she tries to become friends and gain the trust of the Kingpin's son, Levin. And so she kind of like plays her part, tries to win him over and develops rapport with him so that they will trust her and that she'll learn more information. But the Kingpin is obviously very suspicious of her, and it's a lot more tenuous and dangerous than she first assumed when she was taking on this job. And it becomes really dangerous really quickly and really perilous. And complicated and emotional and just so good. I fell in love with this book, and I remember just thinking, like, how is this book so good? And it just keeps going. And even though you're frustrated sometimes with the choices the character makes, the dynamics are so interesting. The magic is insanely interesting. It was just amazing. It was so, so good. There is like a subplot of sort of romance, but that's not really the purpose of the book, and that's not really the point. The plot is a lot more than that, and there's interesting things with prophecies as well, and you're like, is the prophecy going to come true or not? I really, really love this, and I think more people need to read it. You need to read it. I even remember, like, I picked this up on a whim, so I kind of get it. I remember reading it and being like, oh, it sounds fine. I mean, it sounds good, but, like, it sounds fine. It sounds like other things I've read. It also just sounds like, I don't know, nothing super special. Like, nothing's really grabbing me about the synopsis. But I was kind of curious, and it came up on Libby for me to check out. And I was like, you know what? I'll give it a shot. Why not? And I think actually the reason I did is because I wanted to listen to an audiobook on a drive, and I lost service. And this was, like, the only one that was, like, downloaded on my phone. And that's how it started. And it blew me away. 5-star read. Amazing. And it's like, I just kind of happened upon it almost. And I know some people were anticipating it. I wasn't necessarily. I just wasn't for whatever reason. And I am so mad that I wasn't, because I freaking loved this book. Levin's really interesting. Oh, and this is the first book of a series. So as far as I know, there's at least 3. There's at least a sequel, but I think there's at least 3. And the author's already announced that there's going to be multiple POVs for book 2. It'll rip your heart out. I remember, like, screaming, like, no! And all kinds of emotions wrapped up in this book, which means it was a good read for me, because I was so invested. Oh, and the magic system, this was touched upon a little bit in the thing that I read you, but part of the magic system, there's spells and incantations and words and things you have to know to do the spells, right? But the magic is also fueled by pleasure and pain. So that's a really interesting aspect of this as well. The pleasure aspect is like, it could be anything. It could be a scented candle. It could be you taste a delicious warm drink. It could be that you're kissing somebody. Like, any type of pleasure, and different types of pleasure can heighten the magic in different ways. And the other way is pain. So physical pain, emotional pain, but say you're in like a fight or flight situation, like it's live or die, you're in a battle, and you like bite your tongue and you have pain, that will help fuel your magic. And it's super intriguing and kind of cool the way the characters use it, but also the way they describe it is like, if pleasure is quantity, pain is quality of the magic. So the more pain, the more powerful you are, essentially, which comes into play at some point, sort of. It's really, really cool. Please read it. It's so good. And then I'll read you a little bit more of the inside flap, because I just like this little part of it. It says, Saffron is the main character's name. With each day testing her loyalties further, Saf finds her web of lies become harder to spin. And when one false step could destroy everything and everyone she's ever loved, the detective who's dedicated her life to vengeance just might die for it. I love this book. I made John read it and he loves it. It's just so good. And I know people probably won't believe me. They won't believe me how good it is, but it's insanely good. Read it. Now that I've just gushed about Silver Cloak for a long time, let's get to the next one. The next one that I think is kind of underhyped / deserves more hype is Heir of Storms by Lauren Hamilton Murray. I loved this book as well. It was also a 5-star read. I think all of these were 5-star reads, actually. Okay, one was 4.5 stars, but you know, very highly rated regardless. So in this one, it's all kind of elemental magic, and you usually, when your elemental magic emerges, you're kind of in a family, so you can be like in a fire family, or an earth family, or a water family, or an air family. But there's also kind of more nuance to it. Because I think our main character is kind of more in a fire background family, but what she develops is more of a rain singer power. So I liked that. I liked the elemental magic aspects of it, and I liked the abilities and the backgrounds of all this stuff. But the main character, Blaze, she is kind of a pariah in her society, because when she was born, the day she was born, She cried or something like that. But regardless, something happened and she caused a flood. She caused this like really horrible storm and it flooded and it killed people. And so people really don't like her and they think she's a pariah and kind of like a plague on society. And then she's never been able to use her powers again and she thinks her powers are gone and that she's not magical at all. Her brother has fire wielding abilities. I believe his name is Flint. Yes. Her twin brother Flint. And everyone loves him and he's like charismatic and wonderful. But one night there is an event that happens and then people are selected to go through the choosing rite, which is this big tournament competition situation. So it decides the next future rulers of the kingdom. And so it's kind of like the Hunger Games in a way, but it's like you get selected and then you have to compete. And the winner is kind of like the queen situation, but there's also like other players in the game. So it's like a whole group of rulers that win, not just like one. And you don't have to die. You just get eliminated, you lose, etc. So Blaze is actually chosen, and the way you're kind of chosen is a signet kind of situation. A emblem will appear glowing on your palm, and it's the element you have and your powers. And then because it's glowing, you've been chosen to compete. And she gets chosen to compete as a rain singer, but she's like, this is impossible, I don't have my abilities. Like, this must be a mistake, I'm gonna get eaten alive in there. And her brother also gets chosen. Then they have to go through a lot of rigorous training before they compete and like and these political kind of games and intrigue, and they have to meet the other players and all kinds of stuff. And the prince shows a little bit of interest in her, but there's also this super dangerous newcomer who is dangerous, but kind of like a loose cannon, and he has a reputation for being ruthless and cutthroat. And he's got like some earth elemental magic. Their names are also all kind of related to their families. So like Blaze, even though she's a rain singer. And I thought that was kind of a fun element as well. And I really, really like competition books. So the competition element of this was really fun. I'm curious to see how the world continues, but it's really, really good. There's also kind of a love triangle situation, but I think it's done in an okay way. I have a new book boyfriend. His name is Fox. He's amazing. I love him so much. It's also kind of a cool story about grief. She has to deal with grief of losing her mom and also kind of coming into her ability that she stifled since the day that her mother died. Or maybe not stifled, but was stifled, and she didn't know how to access it. And then she kind of learns how to access her power. She learns how to grieve and think through things and kind of realize that the political environment is twisted, and now she's kind of being thrust into it and she has to figure out what to do. So loved this, 5 stars. Doesn't get enough hyper attention, and I think you should read it if you like YA fantasy series. The next one that I think is underhyped is The Rose Bargain by Sasha Payton Smith. I fell in love with this one as well. It was kind of one of those things that I thought it was going to be really good and I thought I was going to really enjoy it, but I loved it. And this is kind of what I wanted the selection to be. So it's very similar to the selection, except the rulers, the like royal family, are fae. So the prince that is looking for a bride is a fae prince. And the reason this was so interesting is it kind of brings the wicked fae elements into it, which is refreshing and fun. I like getting those sides of it. Like sometimes I like the Akatar vibes where they're just kind of dangerous, immortal, beautiful beings. But sometimes I really enjoy the sinister trickery side of it, and that's this. So the idea is that when you make a rose bargain, there's always a season where you're trying to get married. But usually it's everyone. It's the commoners, it's the people, the humans, male, female, whatever. You're trying to get a husband, so you enter the season. And when you do a rose bargain for the season, it's to kind of like put you ahead of the game so you can win a husband. So women will go and say like, I would like perfect teeth. And then the Fae Queen will give them perfect teeth, but magic comes at the cost. So she may give you perfect teeth, but then she'll take away your fingernails. There's like a give and take at each situation, and it's really interesting. I love that stuff because it's not just all glitz and glamour and rainbows and puppies, you know? And so that's the rose bargain portion, but then in this season, the prince is up for grabs. So he's the only one available, and I think it's like 14 women. Might be more than that. I can't remember how many women it is. It's like 24 or 14. I don't remember. Anyway, if they agree, they have to sign in blood that they're going to enter this competition for this prince. If they lose, they can never marry. Wild. They can never marry anyone else. That's it. If they win, they get the prince. If he chooses them, I guess, they get the prince, you know? So stakes are very high through the whole time, and people are kind of cutthroat. It gets kind of crazy. There's magic involved. Wait, the Fae suck, but it's like polite society suck. So they're just mean and a little bit vicious, and the rose bargain aspects are crazy. But there's also some like more sinister magic that comes into play, and there's like some underlying threats that you don't really know about, and you're like trying to figure out along the way. And the main character, Ivy, enters this competition, so she signs the contract in blood and enters the competition, and she kind of befriends the prince's human half-brother to try to kind of figure out what to do and to survive the situation. And he becomes like a friend with her. He wants to cut deals with her as well because there's something that he wants. And so it all gets kind of really interesting and complicated, and cannot wait for the next book. The situation you end up in, the cliffhangers, the like suspense, so good. So if you read this election and you liked the idea of it, but you didn't like the execution of it, and you would perform more fantastical elements, try this. It's so good. I loved it. The next one will probably come as a surprise to no one because I've talked about it multiple times on my channel. But the next one that I think really deserves more hype and more people should read it is Welcome to Fae Cafe by Jennifer Crope. This is such a fun series. I've only read the first two, there's 4 in total. But when I read this, I was blown away. At the time that I bought this, it was like an indie author, and I just picked it up on a whim because I was like, welcome to Fae Cafe, a coffee shop Fae story with assassins. Sounds cute and fun. It is so good. I'll read you the back of it a little bit. It says, 4 deadly Fae assassins come to the human realm to hunt down Kate Cole for breaking a fairy law. Leading them is Prince Cressica, the most feared and deadly Fae assassin of the North and heir to the North Corner of Ever. So, she accidentally breaks Fae law, and they come to hunt her down and kill her, and hijinks ensue. It's really funny because it is dangerous and adventurous, but also she figures out like little ways on how to thwart the Fae, and they'll be like, dang it! And it's just hilarious. She's also trying to open a coffee shop, and she's just like some unsuspecting human. It's so funny. And her best friend is a police officer. It's like almost a sister. I think she was like her best friend growing up, but they kind of like took her in. So it's kind of like her sister. And she's a police officer. And there's just so many funny elements to this. And there's this situation where they talk about oatmeal raisin cookies and how it's like the greatest betrayal ever because they thought it was a chocolate chip cookie. And I understand on a visceral level. This book made me laugh out loud so many times. It's so fun and funny and kind of cozy, but also adventurous and heartwarming and just such a good time. And I'm so mad people don't read this book. Read it. It's so good. It's just like, I don't know. It's so good. I read the second one, and it was in the car with John, and was listening to it a little bit, and even he was laughing. They're so good, but also dangerous, and also there's like a lot of things going on. It just feels kind of like dangers lurking around every corner, but it's also funny. It's so good. I love it, and I think more people should read it. And I don't really know much more to say about it that's not super spoilery, but there is like a little bit of a romance in this, and it's very cute. And I think there's romance in the second book, and then in the third book, I think it's more of a roommate situation, and in the fourth book, also a romance. So it's like following the band of assassins, which I love. They're all really individualized and fun and have their own personalities. And the way they interact with the humans is hilarious. I love it so much. Read it. Please. Next one that I think deserves more hype is Long Live Evil by Sarah Rees Brennan. I can't believe people haven't read this and loved it. It's so fun. So the premise of this one is it's a person in the mortal world, just a normal human girl, and she gets diagnosed with a terminal illness and she's gonna die. And she's laying in the hospital bed, really not wanting this to happen, but not really knowing what else to do. And she's kind of had a sad life because she's been kind of teetering on the edge of being terminally ill for a long time. She's had chronic illness, and now she's dying. Then a mysterious stranger comes to her bedside and tells her that if she makes a deal with him, he can send her into the fantasy world of her favorite book. So she's read these books, these fantasy books, and she debates about them with her sister. It's fun. And he tells her he will send her into this fantasy realm that she doesn't believe exists, as one of the characters. He can't tell her which character she will be, but it'll be whichever one reflects who she is as a person. And when she gets into the fantasy realm, she has to find this magical flower, and if she finds it and brings it back, she will live. Won't die, and instead she'll be able to live and be cured and go about her merry way. But she has a time limit on when she can accomplish this, and she has to do it within that time limit or she's doomed. And she's like, bet, I'm gonna die anyway, so she doesn't really believe it's gonna happen. And then she wakes up, and she is the lady dressed in blood. She's a character in the book that is a villain, and she knows that this character dies. And so she's trying to prevent her own death, trying to weave what she knows about the story to kind of change it in certain ways. But also she's like, oh, well, I'm not going to change the ending or the whole story, but I'm trying to change this personal situation where I don't die. And she's kind of like a seductress, and she's evil, a villainess. First she's like, why is this the one that matches me the most? But she's like, whatever, I like villains, okay? But it's also interesting because she has to play into it a little bit, because people have interacted with her in this world and now she's different. And so she has to kind of play into, maybe I have some memory loss and I don't know what happened. I had an accident, and she just has to play this game. So she's trying to, it's like a political game kind of, but also trying to find out characters involved and how she's going to get to the top and how she's going to get this flower and kind of spin everything to her advantage, especially with the knowledge of the book and the characters that she already has. And she recruits this guy that's he'll just kill anyone. He's like an assassin, kind of. I don't think it's his occupation, but she kind of finds him in a bar and hires him and is like, be my bodyguard, be loyal to me, and I will take care of you and pay you. And he's like, okay, pay me and I'm good. And they develop rapport and a friendship, and she gets somebody else involved. I think it's her lady's maid. So they're all trying to kind of sway the situation and manipulate everything. But also maybe the story starts changing because of this. And I loved the premise of this. I loved the execution. I really enjoyed how it was a very unique situation, because it's a portal fantasy, but you get to go into your favorite book and then things go from there and things start changing and she starts to not know what's going to happen. Like I kind of said already, it's really good and it's really unique and I really loved it. I fell in love with the character Key. He's another book boyfriend. And also maybe the villain isn't who you think it is. I cannot wait to continue this series. The second book was supposed to come out this year and now it's pushed next year, which is sad for me, but I can't wait. I will devour it as soon as I get it. I loved this. It was super unique, and if that sounds interesting to you, I think you should give it a shot. There's a tiny smidgen of romance, but that's not the point of this book, but it is so, so good. And then for my honorable mention, last but certainly not least, is The Irresistible Urge to Fall for Your Enemy by Brigitte Knightley. Now, I know this is hyped in a sense because it's one of the Germani fanfictions that are turned published works. She does change a lot about the story, so it's not exactly the same. And while the hype around its release was a thing, I haven't heard a lot of people talk about this, and I think it deserves so much hype. It's so good. It's so funny. The world is insanely interesting. The different, clans are super interesting. It's an enemies to lovers situation. It is a lot more romance focused than the other ones, but there's still a lot of going on with the plot and things that are super interesting and keeping you just on this adventure. As loyalties are tested in this slow burn enemies to lovers romantasy following an assassin and a healer forced to work together to cure a fatal disease while resisting the urge to kill each other, or worse, fall in love. This is book 1 in a duology, so the second book comes out next year and the cover has already been released. I'm so excited. So you're following Aaron and Osric. Osric is an assassin and he's part of the Assassin's Guild. I'm trying to think of what they're called. I can't remember at this moment. Let me see. I know it talks about them. The orders, yes. Okay. So it talks about the orders in the back of the book, and there's actually a glossary, and it's super cool and helpful. So there's the bright paths, and Aaron is one of these. Healan, harm to none. So she's the healer quadrant kind of situation. She heals people, and her whole, a Hippocratic oath, that kind of a thing. She can't harm anyone. She's trying to heal people. She's trying to help people. She can't really pick and choose who she helps. But they also hate the Firen Order, which is his order, the Assassin's Guild. And these are the Duskin Paths, dark paths. And his motto is fear not the dark. Wicked, crime, sin, order of assassins trained in shadow walking, notoriously costly to hire, and notoriously lethal. And his Taken, I can't remember exactly how you say it, but his emblem that's on his palm is a red hellhound skull. So whatever order you're in, it's branded onto your hand, and it like lights up with magic. So his will light up red, but you can't hide it. So there's situations in the book where he has to hide it and he has to wear gloves, and that's like a sus thing to do because your orders are very visible. And hers, harm to none, cure, heal, revive. Order of Healer Scholars. So she's a healer, but she's also more of a scholar. So she's kind of like a researcher and healer. And the dynamic of both of those is super interesting. So they hate each other's orders by like nature. And Osric finds out that he has a deadly disease that is killing him. It's incurable, and he only has a matter of time left. And he knows that once it has progressed to a certain point, he will no longer be able to use his magic. And once he's no longer able to use his magic, his order will dispose of him because he's no longer useful. And so he's, as a ruthless, heartless assassin, trying to survive, trying to find a way around this. So he decides to try to blackmail Auren, one of the best healers ever, and scholars and researchers. So he like breaks into her practice and tries to blackmail her, and it's not going well for a really long time, which is super funny. She's just like, well, you're just gonna have to wait. And he's like, do you understand what's happening? So he blackmails her and then kind of bribes her into helping him, and she agrees to try to help cure his disease and even do things that are like considered illogical and impractical, and tapping into like magic that has no research behind it to see if it'll heal him. So they like kind of go on this quest back and forth to figure out if they can heal him. But in the midst of this, there's also a pox outbreak. It's kind of like a disease that was like extinct, and now it's suddenly popping up, and it's really hard to treat the children that this is happening to. And she's desperate to try to find a cure for it, but she's also running out of funding, and so he kind of bribes her with money so that she can continue to fund her research into curing these children's sicknesses. And so there's like a couple plots going on. So the first one is she's trying to cure him of a disease, and he's helping her with like funding and different stuff, and they have to cross paths, and he has to kind of protect her a little bit. And then this pox situation, and they don't know what's happening, how it's happening, why, and they're trying to track down a source, track down a cure, figure out what's going on. And it kind of becomes evident that maybe this is on purpose and that her life is at stake. The dynamics between the two of them are super funny. Again, they hate each other, but they have to do these like really funny situations where he's like, you have to check me out, as in you have to figure out what's wrong with me. You have to take physicals, you have to do all that stuff. But then he's like, look how gorgeous and fit I am. And she'll just be like melting, and she's just like, sup. Like, it's really humor forward, but there's also so much adventure and other plot devices going on that you're really intrigued to find out the mystery elements of the pox. You're really intrigued to find out if she can heal him and how they're going to navigate life together. And there's situations where he's like stabbed, and then he's like, hey, can you heal me? But also I'm trying not to make a fuss about it because I don't want people to know. And she's like, you're bleeding out and you didn't say anything. The dynamics between the two of them are really fun and funny. The situations they get themselves involved in together is really funny because of how they interact with one another, and how like he would respond to a situation versus how she would respond to a situation. And he's like the dangerous brooding type, but he's also got a soft side maybe for his pets, and she loves everyone except him. He's the worst, and his order is the worst. And the order doesn't necessarily want him to be working with her. They would probably like be really mad if he was working with her. And if somebody puts a hit on her or whatever, like they don't care. So it's just so good and funny. And I had such a great time, the best time reading this. And I'm very excited to finish the duology, but I'll also be really sad when it's over. I love this story, and I hope you do too. I hope you read it and you give it a shot. While this is the more hyped up book, I still think people aren't reading it and talking about it enough. So give this one a shot as well. Well, that was my long-winded gushing over these books. But I would love to know if you've read any of these books and what your thoughts on them were. Or if there's one book that you think is super underhyped and you think more people should read. But for now, that is it for today's video. Please like this video if you liked it, subscribe if you want to, and I will see you next time. Stay safe and caffeinated. Bye.